evening and welcome to the Paranormal Lens podcast presented by Jott-Nyx Paranormal. I am Jamie Widener. I'll be your host tonight along with Chad and Kirsten. There and there,
somewhere.
I don't
Doing
know.
things.
Every time I point one way, you're the other. So the only thing I'm just going to go is like there.
That's okay. On my end, the intro was still playing while you were starting to talk. So,
am I? Okay.
It
kind of skipped for me as well. So I was like, oh, I guess I got it ready. Here we are.
So,
well, welcome back, gang. Ugh. How we doing this week?
We're here.
Yeah.
Probably, right?
I mean, it's been a. Sorry, my bearded dragon decided to awaken, and now she's staring at me. But it's been a pretty good week so far.
It's only Tuesday, so
I mean, I already got a nice offer for something that I can't announce yet, mainly because I have not signed a contract. So there's that.
More to come.
Cassie has gotten into saying mama and seems to be recognizing me as mama. So there's that.
Awesome.
That's a great week. So
it's a great week.
All right. Next thing you know, she's driving.
No, Jamie. It's no,
not yet. Okay.
8 months old. No,
and they go so fast. The years go by. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Then they turn 16 and they still don't drive.
Or 17 or
18.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Anyway,
You're not wrong.
That's not every kid though. But we digress.
So. It was not me. I'll tell you that. That day I turned 16, I was at the Pennsylvania State Police Barracks getting the test done. Real quick story to that. Did the driver's test, about the coursework and everything. Came back, parked the car, and got out. Walked down to a couple steps to the barracks, the police barracks, where they process the rest of the stuff. Give you your driver's license. Mm-hmm. Came back to the car, got in, went to start it, and it wouldn't start. I'm like, oh, come on, And obviously, I'm 16. I have a beater car. It's what you get, kind of thing. I'm like, trying to get it start. I looked down and I realized I left it in drive. Literally just got out, so excited or nervous. Either way, I've got a state trooper sitting next to me in my car, and walked in. Thankfully, it was a flat level spot where I parked. Either way, a hill either way, it would have drifted off, So put it in drive, start the car right away, took off.
Well, and you got your driver's license.
So got my driver's license, so never look back.
So yeah, I did my. You had to take an adult with you when I did mine. Because it was the same thing. I got my permit the week before, so I had it, and my birthday rate went up, and went in, did the test, and my mom was waiting for me, and she's like, did you pass? Are you done already? And that was even after making a wrong turn. And, because it was the same thing. Police officer sitting there, and I was really nervous and turned the wrong way. And he's like, well, that wasn't the right turn that I told you to make, but that's okay.
I remember doing
right.
I remember doing my test. It was in the mall in Shamokin because I didn't want to take a test in my hometown because the examiner was super mean. So I drove an hour to Shamokin. And I just remember doing the parallel parking, acing that, going to pull out, and some car not paying attention goes like 50 miles right up next to me and almost hits me. And the guy's like, good job not moving.
Cool. So
most terrifying thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I moved an inch, and all of a sudden I saw the car, and I'm like, we're going to wait.
Good. So. But we're not here to talk about driver's license testing.
We're not?
No, that's the other podcast.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That's Wednesday nights. All right, okay.
Yeah. Forgot about that.
Driving with Jott-Nyx. Hey, it could be a show. Who knows?
It could be.
And if this doesn't work out, it might be. Who knows? So I'm going to ask, did you guys do anything exciting this weekend? Anything going on you want to share?
Mine was an interesting weekend, but we won't go into it. But
okay.
But we did have the concert. You and I, we were talking last night. Emmy had their honors chorus concert last night, which was good, and lots of kids performing, and all sorts of things. The string quartet was really good too. I really enjoyed them.
There's a lot of talented kids, willing to get up and show off their skills, which, obviously they knew they were going to do it, first of all. But yeah, I'm always impressed with the level of talent, and it's everywhere. It's not just at this school district, but many others as well do this kind of event. It's the first of a few toward the end of the year. There'll be a concert of the band and the orchestra and the chorus later and all. But it's always, I look forward to this one. I think it's fun and it's creative and unique. So the kids nailed it and did a great job, as well as everybody else.
Yep.
But and it was only like an hour, so it wasn't too bad.
Exactly. So,
as I always say, I survived another one.
So what about you? Did you do anything fun?
I did. I played hooky on Friday, and that well, not really hooky. I guess I took a personal day or PTO day.
Oh, okay.
I needed to figure out like a driver's license thing and passport stuff. I was, in case I'm thinking of traveling somewhere next year.
Travel?
So, travel, yeah. So that I took the day to do that in the morning, but I had already had plans for the afternoon. We have a lot of local universities here around us and colleges and so forth. One of them is Elizabethtown College, and I was aware that they had a presentation or a lecture from a guy named Greg Eghigian, Dr. Greg Eghigian, professor at Penn State University of History and Bioethics, and he is the author of this book, which I don't know that you could see this very well.
No, you
so
can't.
I apologize.
It's nicely blurred.
Get nice and close. It's called After the Flying Saucers Came. It's from 2004. And his lecture was on the book and on the general state of UFO and UAP phenomenon in the world currently. And it was about an hour lecture. He went through a lot of things. He talked about the things he's learned, in researching this material. And then about a 45 minutes worth of Q&A with the audience. It was a fairly full lecture hall, free event open to the public. Of course, students were there, but also I was not the oldest nor the youngest in the room, which is unusual, using one of the older ones. But one of the things I took away from it, well, a couple things, but one of the really important thing for me was that we as people, since the 1940s or so, have really created the concept of what UFOs are. Although they've been seen and noted throughout history, all through time, ancient times, current times, everywhere in between. But since we have expanded into broadcast technology, we have really exploded the presence of UFOs in the world. And, you think about it, like from the 40s and 50s, television started to come up. Radio has always been around, but the connectivity of all of it, and certainly now in the current state where we have instant access to all of the information services and resources, at our fingertips, in our pockets, with cell phones and so forth, and the internet. It was a really interesting conversation and a really cool talk. I'll get into a little bit more of that maybe later in part of the context for why we're here tonight. But okay. I was really happy I could get to go do that.
Cool.
And tried to get a connection with him afterwards, but he got mobbed by a bunch of people. So, but it might be an interesting conversation. See if we can get him to come in to meet here with us sometime. Cool. So, yeah, that was it. Saturday and Sunday, where it was blurs, stuff happened, things got done. I'm sure, probably. I haven't been told otherwise yet.
So cool. Kirsten, did you do anything fun?
Saturday I went and saw my horse, that normal thing, and then Sunday my family celebrated Easter a little bit early since a few family members are going to be going down to Delaware for a bit. So had a nice early dinner, cool. Easter dinner at least, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, the season is here.
Mm-hmm. I'll take the warm season.
Oh, I know. It was 80 degrees today, guys.
Yeah. Alex and I, we planted our garden, so we'll have a nice, colorful garden next year.
Fantastic.
Very cool.
It is the time. Everybody in my neighborhood's mowed their yard but me, apparently, so might have to do that this weekend. Keep up with the Joneses and the Smiths and the Johnsons and everybody else. Every year, this is a quick side to that. Every year I count basically like April to October, how many weeks that is for how many times I have to mow. So every time I do it, it's like one less. That's not my thing.
No.
That's necessary. So anyway, all right. So not speaking of anything like that, we're here for a different reason, right? So
Yeah.
We
We're
are.
here about geometry, right?
yeah, we are. We're gonna place the shapes game again. Yeah. Not squares, not pegs, not rounds, but triangles. So our favorite shape here on Paranormal Lens. So we're going to talk tonight about the Bridgewater Triangle. And the first graphic that we have up now kind of gives you an idea where this is. It is in southeastern Massachusetts here in the United States. It is about an hour southeastish from Boston, Massachusetts, or about 25-30 minutes due east of Providence, Rhode Island. It's in that spot where if you blink, you miss it kind of thing. You'll pass by it nearby, at least on I-95 when you're going up the corridor to Boston and beyond. But it is still a fairly rural thing. I'll not to get too far ahead of myself, but I think it'll kind of be explained as we discuss this.
Okay.
So, as we always do, let's start with a little bit of history kind of stuff, and then we'll talk about the paranormal. So, the Bridgewater Triangle, located in southeastern Massachusetts, has earned a reputation as one of the most mysterious and paranormally active regions in the United States. Encompassing roughly 200 square miles, the area includes towns such as Abington, Rehoboth, and Freetown, forming a triangular region rich in both historical significance and supernatural lore. Since the term was coined in the 1970s, the area has become a focal point for investigations into unexplained phenomena. What makes the Bridgewater Triangle particularly unique is not simply the volume of paranormal reports, but the diversity of them. Sightings range from ghosts and UFOs to cryptids and alleged interdimensional beings. However, these modern claims are deeply entwined with the region's past. The triangle's reputation cannot be fully understood without examining its indigenous roots, colonial conflicts, and evolving cultural interpretations. Let's start with the history. Before colonization. Long before European settlers arrived, the region would become the Bridgewater Triangle was inhabited by indigenous peoples, primarily the Wampanoag Nation. For these communities, the land was imbued with spiritual meaning. Natural features such as forests, rivers, and swamps were not merely physical spaces, but part of a living cosmology. Central to this region is the Hockomock Swamp, a vast wetland that has long been associated with spiritual activity. The name Hockomock is often translated as place where spirits dwell or place of evil spirits, though interpretations vary. This designation reflects the belief that the swamp was a liminal space, a boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds. Unlike modern interpretations of evil, indigenous understandings of spiritual presence were more complex. The swamp was not necessarily malevolent, but powerful, deserving respect and caution. The worldview contrasts sharply with later colonial interpretations. The physical characteristics of the Hockomock Swamp contributed significantly to its reputation. Dense vegetation, unstable ground, and limited visibility make navigation difficult even today. In earlier centuries, these conditions would have been more challenging. Natural phenomena within the swamp, such as strange sounds, sudden mists, and unusual animal behavior, could easily be interpreted as supernatural. The swamp's ecosystem includes a wide range of wildlife, and the distortion of sound across waterlogged terrain can create eerie auditory effects. These environmental factors likely played a key role in shaping early stories about the area. Even without supernatural explanations, the swamp would have been perceived as a dangerous and unpredictable place. One of the most important historical events connected to the Bridgewater Triangle is King Philip's War from 1675 to 1676. This conflict between Native American tribes and English colonists was one of the deadliest wars in early American history relative to population size. Metacomet, known to the English as King Philip, used the Hockomock Swamp as a strategic base. The swamp's difficult terrain allowed native forces to evade colonial troops and launch surprise attacks. However, the war ultimately ended in devastating losses for indigenous communities. The violence of the war left a lasting imprint on the region. Entire villages were destroyed, and many lives were lost. Some historians and folklorists suggest that the memory of this contributed to later beliefs that the land was cursed or haunted. From a psychological perspective, sites of trauma often become associated with supernatural narratives. The Bridgewater Triangle may be an example of how collective memory transforms historical events into myth. As European settlers established themselves in the region, they brought with them a worldview shaped by Christianity and superstition. Unfamiliar landscapes were often interpreted through the lens of fear and moral judgment. The Hockomock Swamp, once a spiritually significant place, became known among colonists as the Devil's Swamp. This shift reflects a broader pattern in colonial America, where indigenous spiritual sites were often reinterpreted as evil or dangerous. The reinterpretation was reinforced by Puritan beliefs, which emphasized the presence of Satan and demonic forces in the world. In such a context, unexplained phenomena were often attributed to malevolent supernatural entities. Over time, stories about the Bridgewater Triangle evolved through oral tradition. Each generation added new elements, blending historical events with imaginative storytelling. Legends of ghosts, mysterious creatures, and cursed land became part of local culture. These stories were often passed down informally, making them difficult to verify, but powerful in their influence. The development of folklore is an important aspect of the Triangle's identity. It demonstrates how communities make sense of their environment and history through narrative. Moving a little ahead. In the 19th and 20th centuries, the region underwent significant changes due to industrialization and urbanization. Railroads, factories, and new towns altered the landscape, but many areas, especially the swamp, remained relatively untouched. The contrast between developed and undeveloped land may be contributed to the presence of the Triangle's mystique. The swamp in particular remained a place apart, resistant to modernization. At the same time, new types of institutions, such as hospitals and schools, became associated with paranormal reports. For example, Taunton State Hospital gained a reputation for ghost sightings, reflecting broader cultural anxieties about mental health and institutional life. Perhaps Taunton might be a future episode. The modern concept of Bridgewater Triangle emerged in the 1970s through the work of folklorist and cryptozoologist Loren Coleman. By collecting and analyzing reports of unusual activity, Coleman identified a pattern within a specific geographical area. The term Bridgewater Triangle provided a framework for understanding these events as part of a larger phenomenon. It also helped to popularize the region beyond its local communities. Coleman's work illustrates the role of researchers and media in shaping paranormal narratives. By naming and defining the triangle, he transforms scattered stories into a cohesive legend. So let's talk about some of that. One of the striking features of the Bridgewater Triangle is the sheer variety of reported phenomena. Unlike many haunted locations that focus on a single type of activity, the Triangle includes ghost sightings, UFO encounters, cryptid reports, poltergeist activity, and alleged portals or dimensional anomalies. This diversity has led some researchers to describe the Triangle as a window area where multiple types of phenomena intersect. Start with the UFOs. Reports of unidentified flying objects are the most common in the Triangle. Witnesses have described glowing orbs, triangular craft, and fast-moving lights. Some sightings go back decades, suggesting a long-term pattern rather than isolated incidents. In some cases, multiple witnesses have reported seeing the same phenomenon simultaneously. Skeptics argue that many UFO sightings can be explained by conventional means, such as aircraft, satellites, or atmospheric effects. However, the consistency of certain descriptions continues to intrigue researchers. Also, the Triangle is home to numerous reports of cryptids, animals that have not scientifically been verified. Amongst the most well-known are Bigfoot-like creatures described as large, hairy humanoids. Other reported creatures include giant snakes, phantom dogs, and thunderbirds, which are massive bird-like creatures, as we covered in a previous episode. These sightings often occur in remote or wooded areas where visibility is limited. And of course, that raises concerns about the reliability of eyewitness accounts. However, cryptid sightings also reflect deep-seated human fascination with the unknown. They may represent a modern continuation of ancient myths. Excuse me. And something we're most familiar with, guys, is ghosts and hauntings. Ghost sightings are perhaps the most widely accepted form of paranormal activity within the Triangle. Many locations are said to be haunted, including historic buildings and natural sites. Witnesses report a range of experiences, from seeing apparitions to hearing unexplained voices. Some accounts involve physical interactions, such as objects moving or sensations of being touched. These experiences are often linked to specific historical events, reinforcing the connection between the past and present. For example, sites associated with King Philip's War are frequently described as haunted. This one might be my favorite part. There is a legend of an entity called the Pukwudgie, and it's one of the most distinctive aspects of the Bridgewater Triangle. Originating in Algonquin folklore, these small, human-like beings are said to inhabit forests and swamps. Traditional stories include Pukwudgies as tricksters who can become dangerous if provoked. Modern sightings often echo these descriptions, suggesting a continuity of belief. From a cultural perspective, the persistence of the Pukwudgie legend highlights the enduring influence of indigenous mythology. It also raises questions about how ancient stories are reinterpreted in modern contexts. There are also reports of cult activity, which add another layer to the Triangle's reputation. Allegations include ritual practices, animal mutilations, and gatherings in remote areas. While some instances have been investigated by law enforcement, definitive conclusions are often lacking. The ambiguity allows such stories to persist and evolve. These accounts may reflect broader societal fears about secret groups and hidden dangers. They also contribute to the Triangle's image as a place of darkness and mystery. So many researchers approach the Bridgewater Triangle from a skeptical perspective. They argue that natural and psychological factors can explain much of the reported activity. Some possible explanations include optical illusions, misidentification of animals, environmental effects on perception, and of course, the power of suggestion. The human brain is highly susceptible to pattern recognition and expectation. In a place known for paranormal activity, people may be more likely to interpret ambiguous experiences as supernatural. Add to that media coverage, which has played a significant role in shaping the Bridgewater Triangle's reputation. Books, documentaries, and television programs have brought the region into a wider audience. This exposure has a feedback effect. Increasing attention leads to more visitors, which in turn leads to more reported experiences. Over time, the line between reality and storytelling becomes blurred. Ultimately, the Bridgewater Triangle is not just a geographic area, but a cultural phenomenon. It represents a convergence of history, belief, and imagination. Whether or not the reported phenomenon are real, their impact is undeniable. The Triangle continues to inspire curiosity, fear, and fascination. The Bridgewater Triangle stands as one of the most compelling examples of how history, environment, and human perception can converge to create a lasting cultural mystery. Far from being merely a collection of ghost stories or unexplained sightings, the Triangle represents a layered narrative shaped over centuries. Its origin in indigenous spiritual traditions, particularly those of the Wampanoag tribe, established the land as a place of meaning long before it became associated with fear. The designation of areas like the Hockomock Swamp as spiritually significant suggests that what is now labeled paranormal may once have been understood as part of a broader and more nuanced worldview. As European settlers arrived, these interpretations shifted dramatically. Influenced by religious anxieties and unfamiliar with the landscape, colonists reframed the region as dangerous or even evil. Events such as King Philip's War intensified this perception, embedding trauma and violence into the cultural memory of the land. Over time, these historical experiences were transformed into stories of curses, hauntings, and supernatural unrest, illustrating how human conflict can leave not only physical, but also psychological and narrative traces. In the modern era, the work of researchers like Lauren Coleman helped formalize the idea of the Bridgewater Triangle as a defined paranormal zone. By collecting and organizing accounts of strange phenomenon, Coleman gave structure to what had previously been scattered folklore. This process highlights an important dynamic. The act of naming and defining a mystery can amplify its presence, turning a local legend into widespread phenomenon. The reported paranormal activity within the triangle, ranging from UFO sightings and cryptid encounters to ghostly apparitions, continues to challenge conventional explanations. While skeptics point to environmental conditions, misidentification, and psychological factors, believers argue that the sheer volume and variety of reports suggest something more unusual. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. The Bridgewater Triangle may not be a single mystery with a single answer, but rather a convergence point for many different types of experiences, each shaped by context and interpretation. Equally important is the role of storytelling. Media coverage, documentaries, and personal accounts have all contributed to the triangle's enduring reputation. Each new story reinforces the last, creating a feedback loop in which expectation influences perception. Visitors who enter the region aware of its history may be more likely to interpret ambiguous sights or sounds as paranormal, further sustaining the legend. Ultimately, the Bridgewater Triangle endures not because it has been definitively explained, but because it resists explanation. It occupies a space between history and myth, science and speculation. Whether one views it as a genuine hotspot of supernatural activity or as a powerful example of cultural storytelling, its significance is undeniable. The triangle invites us to consider deeper questions about how humans understand the unknown. How much of what we experience is shaped by belief? To what extent do stories influence reality? And why are certain places, like this region in Massachusetts, able to capture the imagination so persistently? In this way, the Bridgewater Triangle is more than a geographic location. It is a reflection of human curiosity itself. Its mysteries, whether real or perceived, remind us that there are still aspects of the world that remain unexplained, and perhaps that is precisely what makes it so fascinating. So, let me cite some sources and we can discuss. First is allthat'sinteresting.com/Bridgewater-Triangle, usghostadventures.com/haunted-places/Bridgewater-Triangle, facts.net/history/35-facts-about-Bridgewater-Triangle, cbsnews.com/Boston/news/the Bridgewater Triangle Rehoboth, Massachusetts-WBZ-TV, it happens here. And lastly, legendsofamerica.com/Bridgewater-Triangle-Massachusetts. All right, guys, here's the thing. Did you know anything about this before we started?
No.
Nope. I also didn't know what a puckwoogie was before either.
No, but I love the name.
I do too. So, it's 6 hours away. Let's go now.
Road trip. I mean, if we're going up that way, we can also then swing by Salem.
Yeah. Well, yeah, here's a funny thing. So when we went up to, we being our teammate Dave, I, and Tim and Erica from Jott-Nyx, New Jersey, when we went up to do the Conjuring House a little while ago now, 2 years ago, I guess, I intentionally stayed in Providence, which was then about 45 minutes to get over to where the Conjuring House is. I was basically 20 minutes. And when I was driving around that day, like the day of, just killing time, I was over near here, but I had no idea it was there yet. And, it's it's like a twofer at that point. Now, obviously the Conjuring House isn't the Conjuring House right now, at least as it was. And who knows where it will be once things settle there. But and this is New England, right? This is the oldest part of us, as a colonized place. So, there is a ton of stuff in this area beyond that.
So
Yeah, I was surprised by
Yeah.
all of this. It's very interesting.
So I'll just call out that we have pictures running for those who can see the video, and there are 2 or 3 pictures that I definitely get a sense that there's something there. So I don't know, Kirsten, if you picked up on that or not, but there's a couple that it was like,
Yep.
So it's definitely interesting, Jamie.
Cool. Well, and with that, there's a few things that really that intrigued me the most is that the swamp, the Pocomoke swamp, is still there. Things like this in our time now get developed. They get figured out. Like just think of Florida for a second. Like Orlando, the area that is Disney was all swampland. And now it is not. So with the right amount of time and resources being money, we tend to take over these places, and as tightly packed as the East Coast is with us as colonizers, as we've kind of taken over everything. I'm really surprised that so much of this is still there, and it kind of reminds me, to some degree, of the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. A very still wild area in the middle of New Jersey that is, in the middle of a lot of urbanization, right between Philadelphia and New York. Both New York's one of the largest cities in the world. Philadelphia is one of the largest cities in the country. But there is this wild area still that has had touches. There are towns and communities in it, but it is still there as a whole. And there are places within the triangle that are in the area of the swamp, but they haven't taken it over yet. And I think that's a really cool thing that it still exists for a lot of reasons. The ecosystem part of it, but also more for the folklore, and perhaps the concern that if they do something, it is a cursed land. Who knows? I mean, maybe, but it's fascinating to me.
I was thinking about that. How the question came to mind when you were talking about how did something that was a spiritual place for the Native Americans turn into something that was feared by the settlers. And I'm wondering if that was intentionally placed by the Native Americans to sort of protect their land and protect their, you know what I mean? Like turn it into something that's feared so it is respected in a different way, but it's still preserved because nobody's going to want to go into it then. So it's just something I have been thinking about since we're talking about it. So
I think there's something else to it. I appreciate that. I don't argue the point at all, but I think there's something else. And with respect to colonizers and the Puritans were part of this, so they had a very, I'll say, narrow worldview of how things should be and how things are in their own piety. And this is well beyond the dynamic of their acceptable range. So, I mentioned it. What you didn't understand, you feared, and there are strangers in strange land kind of thing as well. So, they don't know the nuances of it all. So therefore it's best to be afraid of it and damage it, take it away, than it is to absorb it and understand it and welcome it. And we see that in colonization all around the world. We've seen this. The indigenous folks are taken over in mass by colonizers. And it's because they want something of theirs, perhaps, or they just they are deemed less than them because of they don't have the technology of the day, that time, or the capacity to say no, and therefore they are annihilated or hopefully just absorbed. But the reality is a lot of times they were not. They were destroyed, and there was a war here in this case between the colonizers and the indigenous folks. So many wrong things have happened through history. That it, hopefully if we could go back and do it differently, we would. But unfortunately, we can't change it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I made a note here too, and I want to. I guess it's a good time to bring it in because something happened this week that caught my eye, in my ear. In a soundbited of an interview, I heard that the sitting vice president, I'm sorry, of the United States, said to a group that he believes UFOs are demons. And it kind of fits this conversation. Something we don't understand, something we might be afraid of, but anything coming from the sky is this, and again, we've been looking up for thousands of years, seeing strange things, right? We've had strange encounters. We've covered a lot of them here in different episodes along the way.
Right.
And I really thought it was interesting that, a person of prominence in our leadership circle has said this out loud, and it wasn't questioned or challenged. So now it's, and not to say it's accepted, not necessarily. And I don't want to get too political here by any means. It's not about party affiliation, that kind of stuff. But it is a voice with a microphone who has the ear of many saying these kind of things. And that's interesting to me because that kind of goes in line with where we just came from in this conversation. Folks with the power are making the decisions to say that this is a place that's dark and dreary or deadly instead of a place that is spiritually enlightened. And the follows that come behind are following that path instead of the indigenous path because they have the power. And that's how narratives change, right? That's how it's all about who's in charge of what information at the time that creates the narrative. And we joke a lot, when we were talking with their friends at Penn State, with folklore episode, but you're always the hero in your own story, so, or the victim, either way, you're rarely the objectionable observer. So, if you are the victim, then the other thing is bad. If you're the hero, then you've won over something that's less, evil or whatnot. You want to be the good guy. And it kind of goes the same way here. Like the narrative's just been controlled because the victors write the histories. So, and unfortunately too, a lot of our native populations didn't have written history. It was all oral tradition. So some of that may have been lost along the way.
Right.
It's not preserved the history.
Right. So what are your thoughts as to why this area has so many different types of what we classify as paranormal activity? You've got hauntings, you've got UFO, you've got
cryptids,
you've got why is that all concentrated in such a 200 square miles? That's not a big it sounds big, but it's not that big an area.
No, it's really not. It's a great question, and it's partially because it's been documented. Like someone's actually taken time to kind of capture all of it, the stories. Mm-hmm. And I would, we joked about this when we did other episodes around triangles, the Alaska Triangle, the Michigan Triangle, Lake Michigan Triangle, the Dragon Triangle. All you need are 3 points and some spooky stuff in between, right? I've said this out loud so many times, I feel like it's a broken record, but it's really it. Triangles are easiest to define because you don't need as much, disconnections. Right. And I would venture to say that it is exactly what I just said there, that someone's managed to document it, and Lauren Cunningham is given credit here for that, for the most of it. But I would bet you that if you took a point off of the triangle and went into a different direction and found another point, you would have just as much stuff. It's all around us, and people, on the paranormal side of this, at least on the ghosts and apparitions and poltergeists and all the stuff, the traditional stuff that ghost hunters are looking for, people have been dying for thousands and thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And just because settlers weren't here, colonists weren't here, the indigenous folks were, the same idea. The presence has been here on the land. And where there's energy, there's passion. And there's passion, there's activity, like things happen. Right. So I can imagine there is residualness to this, and folks stay beyond their time. So is everything like the UFO stuff, is it all literally that? No, maybe not. We are, at least in our current times, we are, in the major metropolitan corridor of the East Coast. There's all kinds of stuff. We have things floating in space we've never had before. Planets are brighter at certain times of the season. Venus specifically comes to mind. It's mentioned a lot in the research I did. But back in the day, right, I don't know what that would have been. So
sort of tagging off what you just said, this is documented more. Does that mean that there were people here that believed more, that did the documentation and didn't write it off? Is that the same in areas of Pennsylvania, like the Pennsylvania Twilight Zone, like the Bermuda Triangle? Like, is it because there's enough people there that are curious and interested? We don't have answers for this, but it's just,
it's a good question, and the easy answer is yes, because we have information. Without it would all just be folklore, right? It'd be oral traditional things. Because there is written material, source material to go to, that would be the easy answer to say yes. Now, the better question is why, right? The big question is always, why is it?
Right.
And that's the thing that I think we're here for. Like all of us in the paranormal field, we're trying to figure out the why.
Right.
Why does someone stay? Why does activity occur? What is the significance of a place? And it's easy sometimes to tell, like, a physical location, where people were treated poorly. Mental health facilities are common for this. The Talas of the world, perhaps, although maybe not there, but some of the psychiatric hospitals. Taunton actually was an insane asylum in the Triangle, and it's still there. It's still operating from 1851 to now. It's still operational. So missions changed, but
right.
So that exists in and of. So I probably lost my point there a little bit. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Stefan has a question. What's the void's name?
Oh, that's Loki. I was like, the void. The void. That's Loki.
Okay.
He likes to make his appearances from time to time.
All right. And then the other comment that he had earlier was, as a Gen Xer, I was lied to about the danger of the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, we all were.
I've gone through the Bermuda Triangle. Nothing happened.
As I have as well. That's another interesting thing. And it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about the UFO craze and the fad of it. We created the Bermuda Triangle to be a thing. We allowed for it to become more than perhaps what it really is, because we presented it to the world that way. It's an unusual zone where these planes disappear and ships go missing and nothing ever happens, and odd things appear all of a sudden out of nowhere. And instead of it just being, and again, this is because there are landmarks, of islands between Florida, Bermuda, and the Bahamas. There's this triangulation available. So all you need are 3 points and space in between, that the weird things happen, and there you've got a thing. So I think there are many, many more triangles out there than we know of. We just haven't identified them as such yet. Or we just haven't gotten to the point where we're willing to put it on a plot on paper.
So what we need to do is we need to plot your house, and my house on a map, and then document the paranormal.
That's our own triangle. Yes.
And that'll be the Paranormal Lens triangle.
That's a big triangle.
All right.
I mean, it is, but it isn't. Like, if you think about the Bermuda Triangle, or
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like a 30 or 40 minute distance between us all.
Yeah.
Give or take. Yeah. Depends how fast you drive.
It's a small triangle.
But that's it though. And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't. I mean, the Alaskan Triangle is pretty much the entire state. It's huge, and it covers a ton of unsettled or uninhabited area.
Right.
And people go missing there all the time because they go into a place that they're not prepared for,
or it's wilderness,
or they go to a place where they don't plan to come back from, and that's a different thing. But that is a massive space, so there's going to be more there per se. If it were a per capita like the East Coast, if that region was just taken from Alaska and dropped on the East Coast, there would be a ton of stuff involved in it. So, it's just that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a big thing. It's just a thing. And if you start looking, you will find. I'm confident to say that.
Right. So Bert and I must have some telepathy going on here.
I saw that.
I was just thinking about using your houses.
Well, if we want to do a square, we can include theirs.
That's true. Well, it probably wouldn't be a square, but it would be
Well, one of them is square.
I got our first anomaly right here. There is a shadow person in my house. So there we go. There's the first one.
There it is. See?
Yep. So
Done.
And then Heather said, I took my mom on a cruise to Bermuda, and all the people joked about the ship disappearing.
I had the same thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was funny the first 20 times. You know, all right, that's enough. There was people I wish would have disappeared from the ship.
I think I was 10. So I was like, weirdly like, oh my God, it's going to happen. And then it never did.
I'm glad it didn't.
I'm glad it didn't.
Yeah.
Although Bermuda was lovely. I'd go back.
Bert, I resemble that remark, yes.
Is that the disappearing or the square? Which one? Hey, I think in the 80s it was hip to be square.
Yeah. Yeah, sure was. That was a Huey Lewis and a News song.
Exactly. Very good.
Oh, my. Yeah, turn on that Wayback Machine. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be in your head tonight.
Yep.
I feel like, you know what? Black cat, black dog, they're just, I feel like it's a staple.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure. Well, you know, if you go to England in the sailing days, you know, a black dog appearing was an ominous sign. It was a foreboding symbol. You know, a random black dog specifically, but and it was usually something was going to happen to you.
Right.
So, black cats got a bad rap too, but dogs aren't immune from it.
You know, there's always the talk of orange cats have like no brain cell. I feel like black cats can kind of file into that category too, because there's times where I question Loki.
Yeah.
He does, and it's more horrifying because it's at night. So it's just darkness, and all you hear is thuds everywhere, and then you see the two glowing eyes.
Yep.
Maybe he's my shadow person. It's just him.
Maybe.
I mean, he's throwing pennies at us, so at least he's paying rent.
The shadow person.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, there will be like a random penny that falls out of nowhere, and it's just him paying rent.
That's cool. You should definitely check the pennies out. Maybe they're worth more than a penny.
Oh yeah.
That's true. Some are.
Mm-hmm. So
it's like the quarters.
So
there's some very old wheat pennies and such out there that are way, way expensive. So always look, especially since we're not using pennies anymore. Start collecting them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gang. Well, I that's all I have. So
Okay.
I will trust that we've covered this, and perhaps we should move it on and wrap up.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Episode.
Yeah. Thanks, Jamie. It's, again, like you said, it's one we didn't know about. So thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Sure. Well, let me say one more thing though. Actually, I forgot. So you know, we usually we save this for the end, but there is a lot of content material out there about the Bridgewater Triangle. So if this is an interest to you, you know, there are programs that have covered it. All the big ones have. There's a ton of other material. Local news stations have covered it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with everything we talk about here, please dig into it. You know, the internet is a wonderful resource, especially you know, when you're going at it for a reason instead of just scrolling randomly. But you'll find a ton of content for the topic, and we're always interested. If you've been there before, you know, you're in the area, you've been through the area, you know, you stopped and spent some time. Let us know about it, what you experienced there. I'd be very curious to hear your spin on it and your experiences. So appreciate that.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's see what's coming up. Kirsten, you want to fill us in?
Coming up next week, I'm going to be bringing Lord to the Deep, Legend of the Siren. That's been pretty fun so far to research, so I'm very excited to bring this up.
Cool.
And then following that, on April 14th, we have Chad going to the Williamson Tunnels, Liverpool's Buried Past. Like the theme we still have going on there.
Mm-hmm.
April 21st, we have the Monte Cristo Homestead with Jamie. And then April 28th, back to me with the Exorcism of Annalise Michael. May 5th is Chad with Shadows on College Hill, The Old Hospital Awakens. And then Jamie again on May 12th with Magnolia Plantation Dairy. Derry, Louisiana. Yes.
Yeah, you like College Hill, Jamie?
I do. I'm really excited for that one.
I
We
want to go
we had some
so
friends
bad.
who investigated there rather recently.
I want to go.
Yeah.
All right. To get in contact with us, you can always go to the team's website, which is www.Jott-Nyx That's JOTT-NYX paranormal.com. If you want to give us any suggestions for episodes or just anything in general, you can email the podcast at info@paranormal-lens.com. If you want to get any type of nice little souvenirs from the podcast or anything like that, you could also go to our linked tree, which is linktr.ee-paranormal lens. Or if you want to support the show in any way, it does take a little monetary for us to run the podcast. You can do a buy me a coffee, and that's buymeacoffee.com/paranormal9. And if you don't want to help us monetarily, we're not going anywhere. You can continue supporting us just by listening in.
Giving us stars wherever you can.
Absolutely.
So, and
I'm going to
go
say
ahead.
real quick, it's been a day. When I messed up Linktree, it made me think of earlier today during a meeting. There was a snack mix that starts with heyday, and I said schnayday because I was reading it way too fast.
That sounds like something that should be at Sheets.
Right?
Mayday.
Oh my God. I'm going to go to our marketing at work and be like, listen, we need to give this to Sheets.
Mm-hmm. So
Nice.
I do want to call out that we did change our email address, but we didn't get rid of the old one. So if you have that, don't be afraid to use it. That's still active, but we wanted to get something a little more personalized and easy to remember. So we went with that, info@paranormal-lens.com. So, and in the future, there's probably going to be a website there as well. So, but things take time. So
Things are brewing.
So email us and tell us what you'd like to see on our website. How's that? So,
Or not see. Maybe another thing. Who knows?
Agreed.
so
Oh, and here's another proof. Bert, the check is in the mail, I swear, sir. He says we're all a star.
It'll be there eventually.
Thank you. As are you. A square one, but still a star.
yep. So
I'm sure he's keeping track. Every time I see him, I'm going to be in trouble. So it'd be nice.
mm-hmm.
But with respects to contact and connections too, we really appreciate any feedback on the episodes. So wherever you're at in the world, however you're catching up to this, whether you're here with us live tonight or streaming services at another point somewhere down the line, drop us a note on the episode. Let us know what you think. And I'm really interested, if anyone's been in the area around Bridgewater, in parts or all of the Triangle. It's a big place, especially the Hockomock Swamp. Be very curious.
Yeah.
I realized that we have friends that live about 40 minutes from there in reasonable distance to get there. So I now have an excuse to go visit them this summer and figure out how to get over there and to skip out for the afternoon kind of thing. So more to come.
So you can come up with a reason, Jamie. I have faith.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they have a toddler, and I'm just going to be like, I got to go.
Oh my. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap up for the night?
Oh, I'm good.
I'm good.
Again, Jamie, thank you for putting this together. Definitely interesting. Definitely, enlightening because new information is always great. Some of the stories that we all know are fun, but new information is what makes us learn and grow. So appreciate it.
Yeah.
Of course.
So to wrap it up, just remember the Bridgewater Triangle isn't just a place. It's a pattern of the unexplained. And if you ever step inside, you might not be alone. So stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.